his extremely astute understanding of what would sell. And combined with what was on the streets of Cincinnati on a regular basis. Once again, going back to this being the port of entry, not just for Appalachians, black and white, but for lots of folks coming up here from not just Appalachia, but from the deep south, once again, looking for jobs, looking for opportunities. This is the Mason-Dixon line, the port of entry, and Cincinnati just became the melting pot for an inordinate number of influences, cultures, not least of which is music. And so Sid Nathan, I think, recognized that there was, the recording industry was coming of age, and he found a way to figure that out and make it work, make money, and combine it with the extraordinary combination of cultures and influences we had in Cincinnati, particularly in the music category. And because, according to some, he didn't want to spend a nickel more than absolutely necessary, he would have the same guys who worked as sidemen on a gospel tune stick around and work as a sideman, as a studio musician for country music, or for rock and roll, or later for soul, or rhythm and blues. And so there's a long list of names in that category of people that started out as studio musicians who might have been from a gospel background that ended up playing rhythm and blues, or kind of started out in a country background that ended up playing on a soul record. Lonnie Mack is a classic example. And Sid Nathan started downtown on Plum Street. I've got a menu back here that you're welcome to look at some of these things later, called the Cat and Fiddle. And right around the corner from the Cat and Fiddle was Sid Nathan's first King Records, and then he moved to the final resting place in Evanston on Brewster Avenue, where the plaque is right now, that the city put up, and around the corner from where hopefully the new King Records Museum will be. But Sid Nathan was extraordinarily perceptive and an incredible businessman, and he was able to find talent. He was integrated. He was the first major, sort of for that period, major label that integrated color in his operation. And Henry Glover, who was his right hand, became one of his chief scouts. So he got a lot of black talent through Henry Glover's efforts. King would probably not be what it became without Henry Glover. Not very well known, but it was Sid Nathan's ability to bridge that gap and break those barriers down that allowed this incredible melting pot of talent, both in the business and in the music, to make King what it was, and really I'm going to let Dave talk about what King has meant to Cincinnati otherwise. Go ahead.
I just have this one anecdote. A friend of mine, George Haggis, keyboard player, local keyboard player, a longtime friend. I was at his house, and he got us some 45s, and he said, "I want you to check this out." He played maybe 30 seconds, so maybe 15 45s, all coming out of King Records, and asked me, and they were all various artists, and asked me, what is the one continuing thread throughout these tunes I just played for you? And I said, I have no idea. He said, Lonnie Mack played on every single one of them. That's the kind of stuff that King could do, is perform with some great studio players, artists that we know. Lonnie Mack on his own is historic, but at that time he was a 15-year-old guitar player working at King's Records, doing session after session after session for all these beautiful R&B artists. That's what it meant to me, that the history of the kind of music that came out of this town during that period of time that I was blessed enough to be shown after growing up and getting to a place where I could appreciate it, is the unbelievable amount of different artists that were grabbed up, brought in, and shown off in a very, very fine way with some great studio players, and allowed their individualism to shine through. Richie and the Students. I mean, I'm not the same public speaker that Jim is. I can't rattle off a bunch of names, but I know that there's an unbelievable amount of history with King, and also Herzog up the street, which is being preserved and talked about in the early 50s with Patty Page and Hank Sr. recording some of his biggest hits. It was this area had, because of LW and some of the other local radio icons that were established here in large broadcasting power, we attracted all the best musicians in all these genres, and so Nashville. Hank didn't record in Nashville; he came up here to record. It's pretty interesting that we are just now. You maybe you already know this. Maybe you're learning it for the first time. But Nashville thinks they own all this, and we had it long before that.
The wonderful expression that's come around, if I can remember it now, that Nashville says they're the birthplace of rock and roll. Some would say, but she was conceived here.
I think Memphis claims the same thing, and they've got people that are helping them say that, and that's what we need here.
Well, one time we were having a transportation conference at UC a couple of years ago, and the streetcar thing was just getting started. And Robert Liberty, who was one of the turnaround agents for Portland about 30 years ago, when Portland really started the boom with inner city development and mass transit improvement, streetcar, etc. And he was waxing eloquent in his remarks about Cincinnati and its history. And I went to him afterwards. I said, "Well, how'd you know all that?" He said, "Well, I'm a professional planner. You can't be a student of planning, of city planning, and not know the illustrious history of Cincinnati in a city planning context. It's second to none, going back 100 years." But he said the only difference between that I would add to that about Cincinnati and Portland is you guys have way more resources than we do. We just got an attitude. And and I hear that from some of the other people in a slightly different phrasing, maybe. But and I think probably that came from Portland's immigration from California, like our immigration from Germany in the mid-1800s really got things kicking, and Portland, California had become too expensive 30 years ago for a lot of people, especially young people that who can get started and looking for adventure and opportunities. And Portland was kind of the closest sort of big city.